Welcome, everyone. My name is Christopher Cata, and it's good to see you all again. Hopefully, we have some of you back again today from our session that we did last week. Today, we join everyone with Eleanor again, and she's here to talk about abuse prevention, and specifically around strengthening resiliency with self-nurturing strategies. So like last time, we are recording the session, and if you do have questions for Eleanor, in Zoom, there's a Q&A section. You can type your questions in there. And when Eleanor's done presenting, then we'll read those questions aloud and have Eleanor then respond to those. And then Eleanor will have her contact information at the end as well, in case you want to reach out to her directly. And so with that, I'll mute myself and give it over to Eleanor to do the presentation. And then I'll check back in with you when she's done.
Thank you, Chris. As Chris said in his introduction, this presentation is on abuse prevention, strengthen resiliency with self-nurturing strategies. I'm Eleanor Silverberg. I am a dementia caregiver grief specialist and the founder of Jade Self-Development Coaching. I work in private practice, and my expertise is in helping people who are dealing with dementia, who are caregivers, and people who are experiencing loss. So obtaining ways to cope is one of the ways to self-nurture yourself. We're talking about abuse prevention, and there are different forms of abuse. There's physical abuse, there's psychological, verbal abuse where, you're putting another person down. But the abuse that we're going to really be focusing on today is not only those forms of abuse that you know, but also the abuse of yourself, of when you neglect yourself, you don't take care of yourself, or you don't have coping strategies. Because to strengthen resiliency, it is vital to have a toolbox of coping strategies, actually. So that's what we're going to be working on today. So what can you do? I developed the 3A coping framework. And this 3A coping framework, the intention is to empower you to self-monitor with self-awareness. And there are 3 components to the 3A coping framework: acknowledge, assess, assist. Acknowledge the reality of the circumstances you're dealing with, assess the impact, and assist with strategies. And the beauty of the framework is that there can be many different ways and methods to assist. And you see visually that the components are put in interconnected ovals. And the reason for this is that they can be applied simultaneously. You are assisting by acknowledging and assessing. So you can use the components independently, or you can use them simultaneously. Hashtag acknowledge, assess, assist. There are assumptions that go with applying acknowledge, assess, assist. The first is that where there is struggle, challenge, and adversity, there is situational loss. And the definition of situational loss is really all encompassing. It is the loss of a person, can be the loss of a person, thing, or quality resulting from alteration of a life situation, which includes changes related to illness, body image, environment, and death. So often when we're talking about loss, we think about death, but the example I can use is losing a person to illness, such as losing a person to dementia. And that's just giving one example of situational loss. The next assumption is that grief is a reaction to situational loss. And in death situations, we really recognize grief. But in situations as what I mentioned, dealing with dementia, the loss and grief does not get recognized. It's disenfranchised. So a caregiver, for instance, could be experiencing, in addition to the demands of care, a disenfranchised grief reaction, which is a reaction to loss that is not socially sanctioned, not openly acknowledged, or publicly mourned, which makes it so much more difficult to experience. So how are you affected by situational loss and disenfranchised grief? It can be immobilizing, confusing judgment and decision-making. There can be ambiguity. It's not clear, which freezes the processing of the loss if you're not recognizing it, or if it's not clear. And it blocks coping, and it can be a risk to well-being. And it can, these things that are occurring, that you get, the way you get affected, can also make you a victim of abuse or make you abuse. So there are potential benefits to processing loss and grief, mobilizing you to be able to cope, to make resolution and peace with the situation, coming to terms with the situation, relief, clarity, and truth. So you can self-monitor this with self-awareness by using the 3A coping framework. So how do you grieve? Grief is, one might say, a normal reaction to loss. And it's not really something, a sickness, but we have to normalize the situation. And the only cure for grief is to actually grieve. There are many tools and methods and models for grief. And I'm going to tell you about Warden's task model because it aligns so well with the 3A coping framework: acknowledge, assess, assist. With Warden's task model, you're resolving the grief by fulfilling a number of tasks. And it's not necessarily linear, but these are the tasks: accepting the reality of the loss, experiencing the pain, adjusting to the new environment that's been brought on by the loss, and reinvesting in a new reality. So let's look at this closer. The task of acknowledging the reality of the situational loss. So we're acknowledging the initial loss, using again the example of dementia care. The initial loss is the illness. And then the initial loss triggers other subsequent losses that may be related or unrelated, such as the person with the illness fulfilled roles, let's say, in a marriage, and can no longer fulfill the roles that the person played. Could be a loss of residence due to having to change residence or move into long-term care, for instance. If it entailed loss of a job because of the illness, there could be loss of finances, loss of ideal, loss of plans, future plans that you may have had, maybe of traveling, but now cannot travel due to illness, and loss of control of the situation. And using the example of a married couple where let's say the wife is the caregiver, she may have her own health issues. So there could be other losses involved. And loss of support. Sometimes you lose that social network. And acknowledging these things, acknowledging what has been lost. And then the next task of Warden's task is experiencing the pain. These losses, the initial and subsequent related and unrelated losses, leads to a reaction. And you notice I didn't put grief reaction because we're looking for specific reactions, like are you sleeping more? Are you sleeping less? Are you eating more? Are you experiencing headaches? And we're also looking at assisting by assessing the emotional impact. So again, this entails self-monitoring with self-awareness. What are you experiencing? And it could be an emotional whirlwind with several different emotions that you feel at the same time. And as you look at this emotional whirlwind, some of the emotions might shout out at you. You might really say, yes, I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling lonely. I feel hopeless, feeling some panic, or you may be feeling numb and out of touch. And don't just think that you're experiencing only one emotion. It's often several emotions at the same time, which can make it complicated. And here's a visual done by, and I'm going to show you a few visuals that are done by sculptor Julie Fritsch, who herself had lost her son to death, and she started sculpting again. And this is her first sculpture after a long term of not doing any artwork. And I think this image really depicts grief and the pain. And here, it's important to bear in mind that whatever emotion you are feeling, you can be feeling it mildly or really extreme, such as you could be feeling anger, or you could be furious or enraged. And here in this image, the person that Julie Fritsch sculpted is overcome with grief. And when the intensity is so high, it's so hard to cope, it's hard to function. And you could be more likely to be abusive or be a victim of abuse. when the intensity is that high. So important to acknowledge and assess and self-monitor with self-awareness and be in touch with yourself. Assist, share the grief, so that you have support. Even in this image, I see that it isn't as intense when you are sharing the experience. You can assist also by reaching out to a support group or seeking one-on-one coaching or counseling, or phone a friend. Many people, when they experience loss and are grieving, tend to withdraw. And that's something for you to assess if that's what you're doing. Are you withdrawing? And self-monitor with self-awareness and assist by reaching out and connecting. So how can I move on? So when you see yourself in a situation that you cannot change, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that's what Acknowledge, Assess, Assist is about being in touch with yourself, seeing, is there change that needs to be made? So with Warden's task, the next is adjusting to the change, and which often involves holding on to what was while you're at the same time letting go. And it's really that's the challenge of adjusting, is that you might not want to change, but letting go of what was and moving forward is a way of coping and being able to adjust. And then the task of reinvesting in a new reality and emotionally relocate the loss. And at this point, you're coming to a place of resolution and comfort and peace, where you've come to terms with the loss. And I've gone through these Warden's tasks very easily in this presentation, but I'm very well aware that this is a challenge that is faced when you are going through loss and grieving. But it will help mobilize you so you can cope better. Also, let's look at other ways of assisting with self-nurturing. And one way is to be kind to yourself, which I can say that very simply, but we all have, what I have found in my private practice is that we all do have an inner voice that speaks to us. Like, I call it mind chatter. And often it can be in the form of an inner critic that tells you when you've done something wrong, or that was stupid, why did I say that, or you look fat, or whatever. And by using Acknowledge, Assess, Assist to be aware of that voice and to not beat up the voice, but just notice it and be kind to yourself, and cut yourself some slack. You in the example of dementia care, um, you're really dealing with heavy duty situation, and you're dealing with high demands often of care. And so beating yourself up doesn't help, but being kind to yourself and gentle with yourself and nurturing with yourself does help. So I created this acronym C for yourself. And you notice that the C is not um, spelled correctly, but it is an acronym. Okay. The S is for nurturing with sleep, getting enough sleep and rest. The E is for eating well. The other E is for exercise. And the third E is for enjoyment, because enjoyment counters grief. Here is a practice exercise, one of 12 practice exercises that's in my book, Keeping It Together: How to Cope as a Family Caregiver Without Losing Your Sanity. And this exercise has you practicing enjoyable activity. We may not think of enjoyment as a coping strategy for grief, but it definitely helps, because you can go down a dark hole when you experience loss and grief. And having enjoyable moments doesn't mean you have to go out on a holiday. There's other ways of enjoyment: phoning a friend, uh, watching a movie that you enjoy, and just going for a manicure, or just lying down and having a rest, an enjoyable rest. And the important thing is to be in touch with what you do enjoy, and not enjoy something because somebody else enjoys it, but it has to be genuine. That's very important. So here's the exercise. It's an opportunity to assist yourself by assessing and acknowledging your enjoyable activities and staying in tune with yourself. It may initially be challenging to come up with activities when your focus has been on others. And this is, my book is for caregivers, and often people who are caregiving, such as yourself, may be more in tune with the person you're caring for than with yourself. So here's an opportunity to get into. So it may have been a while since you allowed yourself even to enjoy. So if you find this exercise challenging, start by just giving yourself permission to experience enjoyable activities. For some, it may take doing that if you haven't been doing that. And be patient with yourself and kind, and take your time with this exercise. It may help to do it with a family member, friend, or counselor. So let's just do the first one. The first bullet point is list 2 or more enjoyable activities that you could include as part of your day. Each activity can take between 1 and 15 minutes. And here's some suggestions: listening to your favorite song, sitting in quiet meditation, contemplation, calling a close family member, doing yoga, journaling, and so on. And again, keep in mind that the key is genuine enjoyment. So what do you truly enjoy doing? If you don't have a piece of paper and a pen, write it down, because maybe make a commitment to yourself to do it tomorrow or the next day. What do you truly enjoy doing? Do you enjoy reading? Do you enjoy music? Do you enjoy going for walks? It has to be genuine. And you might want to put down one or two and notice that it doesn't have to be a long activity. Also, what is important with enjoyment is frequency. Okay, you can say, I went out for lunch with a friend last month, but is that going to sustain you? It's better to have enjoyable activities in your life frequently and alternate them. Have a variety of things that you enjoy. So this may be a good way for you to explore, acknowledge, assess, and assist with the intention of self-monitoring with self-awareness. So the 3A coping framework is a tool for coping. I hope that you got that from this presentation. The components: acknowledge, assess, assist, are action words for you to be self-monitoring with self-awareness. So I hope that you got something out of this presentation and it was helpful for you. Thank you. Next week, we're going to be continuing the Zoom webinar series on abuse prevention, Wednesday, November 10th at 7 p.m. And the topic is staying grounded with mindfulness practice. And you can register at dementiaandelderabuse.com. My name is Eleanor Silverberg, and my contact, you can check out, if you want to learn more, you can check out the website, eleanorsilverberg.com. You can contact me by email, hello@eleanorsilverberg.com, or by phone, 647-624-5677. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. That was fantastic. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us as well. As is customary, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them now. I don't see any in the Q&A at the moment, but we'll give you a few minutes if you want to try that out. The webinar itself, as I mentioned, is recorded. So within a few days, we'll actually be posting it to the Caregiving Matters website under the elder abuse and dementia program on the website, so you can gain access to it there. And then also in that same location is the registration for the upcoming webinar that Eleanor will be presenting. So if you want to join us for that one as well, please do go there and register, and we hope to see you again. I don't see any questions, so I think we can close it out. Thank you so much, Eleanor. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Bye.